If you've ever read Dante's Inferno, then you know by the time you get to the end of it, you're completely exhausted as a reader. But then again, so is Dante the Pilgrim. It seems that, though, the author, Dante the poet, actually meant that. Not only does he give this kaleidoscope of violent imagery, of souls holding their own heads by their hair, of rivers of blood, of windstorms and hurricanes, blowing around the lovers, and mud fights and pits of mud and all these different types of things, serpents and snakes and metamorphoses into Gila monsters. But Dante also tried to use certain types of words which he had previously, as a poet, forbidden himself from using. As a young man, he had tried to write what I call the perfect poem. The poem, which was so melodious and harmonic and lovely, he thought that it could instantly bring out the best in you or instantly condemn those who had no good in them whatsoever. But things change in Inferno. And he begins to write things like this, as I say in the previous translation for Angelico. Here's Dante summarizing what he was trying to do on the very linguistic level. If I had rhymes sufficiently hoarse and harsh to be a fitting match for this sick hole, on top of which all other rocks exert their weight, I'd squeeze the juice of my perception most fully. But because I don't, I'll have to go on speaking, but with a sense of fear, because it's not an easy enterprise, no joke, to map the center of the universe, especially in a tongue that calls out mommy and daddy. In Purgatorio, though, everything is different. It's as if Dante has built in a completely different soundtrack. My joke is, it's as if you've been listening to heavy metal on your play mix and all of a sudden it switches over to a Schubert string quartet at your party. Unlike in hell, where things are underground and there's broken rocks and there's screams and there's fights and there's cursing and there's blasphemy, in Purgatory, the soundtrack is different. The souls are singing Gregorian monophony and unity. They're praying. The landscape is smooth and cool and bright and full of flowers. Dante sees stars that he's never seen before. Everything is bright and serene. And in order to capture that, Dante himself says, I'm going to write con più arte, with more art, he says in Purgatorio 9. As I elevate my content and write about higher things, I'm also going to elevate my style. My translation tries to capture that as well, with one fascinating addition. Precisely as Dante, as sort of think of a musician playing ascending scales on the right hand and the treble clef. As the very moment that Dante's sort of ascending in style, he's also descending in a way. He's retaining words which are humble and lowly, maybe even you could say humiliating. He has a mixture of these two styles in what I call Dante's fugue, something I also try to capture in this translation. For instance, when Dante's almost at the end of his purgatorial journey, almost at the top, he and Virgil and Statius have to spend one more night out in the open, and Dante used this incredible simile to sum up their epic journey. And just like goats in tranquil rumination, who had been rowdy, capricious among the hills before they'd found repast, but now in shade are quiet while the sun is hot, and guarded by the shepherd, who leans upon his staff and stands to watch their rest. Or like the watchman who sleeps outdoors and spends the night beside a somnolent herd, and watches lest a beast should scatter them. Just so were we, all three together, and I was like the goat, and they the shepherds, flanked by walls of lofty rock on either side. There, little of the outside world could be seen, except a tiny patch where I could see the stars, much brighter and larger than is their usual habit. While ruminating on them and marveling at them, I was overcome by sleep. In this way, Dante brings together the loftiest things with the common goat, clipping grass, the lowest, earthiest things, at the exact same time. Dante says that he sees the stars unusually bright, and he says that he looked upon them and marveled at them. But then he wants to describe the very act of looking, the very act of marveling, this high aesthetic act of the heart and the head, in terms of ruminating, as if he's cropping grass. In other words, when Dante looks upon beauty in the world, He doesn't just want to see it, he wants to taste it and to eat it. He doesn't want it to be a head phenomenon. He wants to absorb it, embody it, have it become part of his heart, become an embodied phenomenon. He doesn't just want to see beauty, he wants to eat it. And thus, this is the guiding principle of my translation of Purgatorio, of the sort of ascending scales on the right hand and descending scales on the left, by which I mean simultaneously, in this fugue-like complexity, Dante's style is getting more elevated, more poetic. The syntax is loftier, the metaphors are higher, and yet he's also descending in this kind of lowly act of humility. He's doing something like Virgil and Statius, the old classical greats, but then he's also doing something like Franciscan love poets, drawing closer to the body, drawing closer to the language of ecstatic praise, and he's doing it simultaneously. That's what my translation tries to capture.